Hello, my name is Laurent Samson and I am part of the talent acquisition team based in Dubai, covering MENA. During these very challenging times that we're all facing, we at SAP MENA are well aware that there are many people that are active on the market because they are either underemployed or unfortunately even unemployed. And we wanted to extend help to those of you that are in that situation in the form of 3 do's and 3 don'ts that could possibly serve as takeaways that you could then use and apply during your job search. I certainly hope that you'll find this information helpful, and I look forward to exchanging with you. The first do that I would suggest to any job seeker is clearly to prepare for the interview. Now, today things are going to be very different. I think moving forward, I think there are going to be a lot more video interviews. So clearly when you're interested in a job, you get a call back after an application. First take time, don't take the call immediately. Take time, maybe schedule the call a little bit later and do your homework. Go onto LinkedIn, find out about the company, find out the people you're speaking to, and practice your interview skills with the knowledge that a lot of interviews today are going to be on video, and it's a very difficult medium of conversation to have. It's kind of in between a phone interview and a face-to-face. But take time to put all of the information together, to prepare it properly, and then to go into the interview with feeling comfortable and with everything in hand. So, the next do I'd like to share with you is a bit of a do and a don't in the same suggestion. Now, let me explain. You're going to get situational based questions in which you're going to be asked in a given situation, how would you behave? For example, if you are to manage conflict between 2 employees, what would you do? So the don't part of what I'm suggesting is don't speak in theories. However, do speak in examples. So let me go in a little bit more detail about how I would answer that question. I would not answer that question in terms of theories. Oh, well, I'm very personable. This is how I behave in general. Or the theories about which are very subjective, and it can be perceived very different on the other side of the table from the people that are interviewing you. Rather, what you want to give is very objective elements to the interviewers, and therefore it has to be based clearly on a given situation. So only answer the question in terms of a specific example. Now, truly, there can be questions where you don't actually have an example. Well, you can build that together from a number of different situations, given that you can anticipate what the answer they're looking for. They're looking at whether you're collaborative, where you're going to take both sides of the stories, you're going to make decisions that are going to be best for the company, in the best interest also of the employees. You're going to take into consideration any legal elements. So you can build a story around that clearly highlights your skill set, but only around giving it specific examples that illustrate a situation when you had to demonstrate this. Now, the next do I'd like to share with you today is make sure you have questions to ask during the interview. During the interview process, you might be relatively lucky, and it might be sufficiently thorough to have answered all of your questions. And if that indeed isn't the case, make sure you have at least one question that you keep for when the interviewers will undoubtedly ask you, do you have any additional questions for us? And you can bring this question to the table. I would suggest you have something around, why did you choose to work for SAP, for example? What have you found interesting in your career with this company? Something that creates an additional conversation in which you can get some very valuable information from how the interviewers on the other side of the table, how they've experienced the culture, have they experienced their career within this company that you're interested in? So make sure you don't leave the interview not having answered the questions. And once again, a bit of a do and a don't, but do ask a question. That is very important, and prepare one ahead of time. And have a list, and you can tick through them very easily. That's not a problem. So now I'd like to share with you a don't. Now this is something I've experienced almost every time in an interview. The interviewee is nervous, maybe particularly interested in the role, wants to make a good impression. The problem is that you end up speaking way too much. There's a given question with an expected answer with some information that are going to show both the qualities for the role and the interest of the person and motivation for that role. I think it's important to each time a question is asked, to step back, to think about what is going to constitute your answer, give that answer, and then take a breath. And by that I mean stop. Take a minute and stop and just let your answer sit with the interviewer. Now, if you see that maybe the question hasn't quite hit the mark, you can ask, have I answered the question? Would you like additional information? But I think the thing here to avoid is to ramble on. Don't ramble on. So take a breath and just let the answer speak for itself. So the next do not I would like to share with you is one around using negative language, both in your face-to-face interview exchanges or even in your written exchanges with the recruiter or the hiring managers. By that I mean, if you have a given experience that was maybe a little difficult, turn it into a positive. Do not use negative language. If you had a difficult relationship with a manager or you lost your job at some point in time, do not disparage or talk negatively about your employer, as this leaves a very sort of negative impression also about you during the interview. Turn it into positives. Talk about it was a learning experience, maybe so there's a difference of culture or expectations or ambitions or objectives, but don't talk negatively. Also, something that can seem to be viewed as negative is don't come into overconfident, and sometimes negative comments can also enhance that. Make sure that you're walking into the interview, you're exchanging in a open, positive dialogue using positive words that really portray the true you, not one that puts you in a negative light, which is immediately going to taint the interview and the impression that you're going to give. Now, this can be very difficult to perceive during the interview, and that's why it is often interesting for you to use a medium like videoing and video yourself answering these questions, and then have somebody give you feedback as to how they perceived your responses. The next don't I'd like to share with you is what we call the spray and pray approach, which means that you're indiscriminately applying to any and all roles in a given sector or a given company in the hopes that you will attract attention from the recruiters. And this is not an effective approach. Just like CCing a number of recruiters internally or externally with your CV in the hopes that they will find you an opportunity. Once again, that's not an effective approach. On the other hand, be selective, be targeted, and look in detail at the job description to make sure you're in adequation with the role. So do not spray and pray, as this really will not get you to the top of the pile and will not get your profile to the right people. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video, and I certainly hope that you found the content helpful. For those of you that might be interested in career opportunities with SAP, please do not hesitate to join our talent community, and also search for all open opportunities via sap.com/careers. Also, if you would like to connect with me, please send me an invitation via LinkedIn. Finally, I would like to wish you all the very best, and thank you very much.